Bob? Tu peux déconnecter en se branchant?
Ouais.
Tu te lèves tôt le matin, toi, hein? Tu arrives au labo.
Hello. Okay.
Hi.
So,
You're back. Okay.
you guys have been frozen for a while.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we had some kind of a network connection problem. I don't know if you saw it on your end.
Well, we saw that you were frozen. Francois and I, we could communicate. No problem.
Yeah, it's we'll see. I have an Ethernet cable connected now, so there should not be so many problems on my end.
Okay.
Okay, so we have now. Tibi is sharing a screen.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we were gonna look at something.
So, what do you want to start with? You want to start talking about the delete button? I think that's an easy issue, right?
Which?
The delete button. We don't have a lot to talk about that, right?
What did you? I'm not understanding somehow.
Okay, the delete button. You want to talk about that, or that?
I don't think there's any particular much to talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'm gonna. I'm working on that. It is a little bit complicated because when you delete objects in a network, deleting one object has side effects.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So if you delete a product, then it will also delete the processes that make that product. And it also delete its connection to processes that would consume it. So you know, so I want to make clear to you when you delete something. Okay, if you delete this, it will also delete all this other stuff. You know, so you can take a look at, you know, what are the side effects of deleting something. But that's what I'm working on now. That will all I think become clear. I think that's about all that's worth talking about it right now.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. Okay. I'm signing in here. Take some notes.
So, Tibi, you said you sent feedback to Bob this week?
Yes.
Yeah. The two topics that we talked about, particularly in feedback, were project relationships, the relationships between one project and other projects, and then even before that was purchasing and other exchanges. And I don't know which one of those you want to start with first.
Maybe we should talk about projects, because that's something that. Okay, here's the thing, Bob. There are two tracks here, right? One track is process management, manufacturing, supply chain, all these things that you call recipes, okay?
Yeah.
And the other thing is value accounting, which is contributions, okay? Capturing contributions, logging contributions, evaluating contributions, and calculating the redistribution. So I was thinking about this during the weekend, and I was thinking, what's the immediate effect of these two things? And I think there's people out there that are interested in the process management tools, supply chain management, process management, all these things, okay? And if we accelerate that track, it is going to attract more attention on the infrastructure. So people might get on board and try to help us develop the software and add new features to it and so on. On the other side,
Right.
it's also good for us, because as we are going from R&D to manufacturing and distribution, we need a tool to manage all that.
Mhm.
Now, if we go to the other track, which is value accounting, it's very related to recruiting and growing the network itself. Because as I was, exchanging with Joe Justice from Wikispeed is just based on a promise. Okay, you get involved in design, and if we ever make money, we promise to, to share the revenue with you in a fair manner. We are a little bit more than that because we're making concrete steps to develop this system that will take care of how this will be done. So it's not just a promise, a vague promise. We're trying to make it very concrete to tell people, well, here's the value equation, okay, and here's how your contribution is going to be evaluated, okay. So you cannot see the results because that's going to happen in the future, but you see the process. I think once you have that process in place and people can simulate the future, recruiting is going to be much more easier because it becomes something that people will understand without necessarily going deep into the philosophy of value networks. It's something that they have there. It's a contract. Do you accept to participate in this project based on this value equation and so on? If I have to sum it up, I think the value accounting system, it's related to the growth of Sensorica, the growth of the network. It will add us in recruiting people because we have something better to tell them other than we're working on this redistribution system and one day it's going to be ready and blah blah blah. We have something more concrete for them, and the deal becomes something that is more it's more clear. And the other side, the other track, it helps us develop the manufacturing and distribution and supply chain and so on. You see what I'm saying? So I was then wondering, how can we play with these two tracks? How can we advance? Like, what do we really need to show in terms of value accounting, and what do we really need? How do we prioritize these two tracks? See what I'm saying? And project is kind of in between, because as you said, yes, projects are very related to processes, okay, but at the same time, projects are also related to contributions and the value accounting system.
Yeah, let me break that down a little bit, and you tell me where I'm going away from how you're thinking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. You had, in your spreadsheet setup, you had projects. You did not actually have the processes that were going on.
Yes.
You had contributions to projects, and the relationships between projects were hierarchical. Okay? When you start actually doing things, you're working in a resource flow network where you have concrete things going on. You have processes of design and process of manufacture, process of testing. You have a bunch of things going. So people are contributing their efforts into processes, which you did not have in your spreadsheet. The processes are also right now related to projects, and it has not been clear to me at various times. It's been one of the puzzles for me is like, what is the difference between a project and a process, and are they both necessary? Are they both the same? So it has become, the way that I started to think about it is that the projects are more like in a traditional business what they would consider to be a product line, And so there will be a lot of, so you will have mosquito sensors are a product line. Transducers are a product line. And so there will be a whole bunch of processes that will take place in the context of that, that are developing that product line. It will have its own evolution in terms of the designs will change, the product designs will change, the process designs will change. And all of this stuff will, but all of these contributions are actually going to be being made to concrete processes that are happening in the world. They happen to be in the context of that project, but it's like I contributed some time to this testing process last Thursday, and it happened to be in the context of the joint type transducer product line. I was working on joint type transducers, but it was in this particular process that happened last Thursday. And we spent 4 hours on this testing thing. I purchased some materials because we needed them to make this sensor system that was going to be going to somebody's lab next week. So there are these very concrete processes that are going on, and these resource flows between them. So where I made the lever, and then that was incorporated into this transducer that somebody else made, and so yeah. So there are all these concrete resource flow relationships, and those are also the real relationships between the projects. Now there are probably other things going on that would not fit quite so neatly into that kind of framework. That might be, so there might be contributions that are more related to, there's the Sensorica, they're more related to the development of Sensorica as an organization, or the infrastructure. It's what working on the lab itself, for all projects and for everything that's going on in the lab, or the marketing of Tactus.
Right.
There's a bunch of things like that don't fit quite so neatly. Yeah. And we're going to have to figure out how to do those, but still in all, there are actually resource flow relationships there. In other words, you're working on the lab, all of the processes that go on in the lab are using the lab, using that space. So the space itself is a resource, and all the equipment in it. So everything that goes on there is using that resource, the space, and the tools in it. So likewise, the marketing of Tactus, is developing your ability to sell products. So it's all feeding in one way or another. Some of those things feed into many projects, and some of them feed into very specific projects. It's not, I can't spell out all of the relationships of all of that stuff right now. What I think, however, what I would prefer to do first, however, is work out the actual economic resource relationships of things before we start working on like more abstract and subjective relationships. I mean, subjective relationships that exist. It's not clear to me that they are part of the value equation, or how they're a part of the value equation. The economic relationships are clearly part of the value equation.
Okay, because the value equation only deals with stuff that goes out on the market to be to be exchanged and then have a redistribution, right? So in that sense, if I understand it correctly, the value equation only deals with these economic relationships and only deals with projects that are very related to products.
I would not go so far as to say that. I mean, I think you have subjective relationships that you want to make part of the value equation.
Can you give an example?
You know, it sort of depends on like how much a reputation is objective and how much of a reputation is subjective.
Okay.
You know, I think a lot of aspects of reputation can be made objective.
Okay.
You know, do you keep your commitments? Okay. Yeah. You know, are you late with things? You know, you know, to some extent, the quality of one's work is subjective, but there are aspects of quality of work, you know, particularly if you get to the point of where you have tests for things, then the quality of work becomes more objective. You know, so I mean, it's less. The more you can make things objective, the less you get into arguments. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying everything can be made objective and there will be no subjective elements. I don't think that's true. Likewise, I don't think that all of your income right now is not really all that product related. Grants and stuff like that, you know, which are more general. You know, I'm not sure. You know, they may be like the. I'm not sure what they're giving you the grants for. You know, it's probably so. There are things like that are going to be coming in for a while yet. I would expect that you can't tie to a particular project that much or product. So it's more like it's more like trying to figure out how all of the economic relationships go together, and then figuring, okay, what do we need to deal with that's not in this set of economic relationships, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of things that people are doing that you might consider to be, might not immediately think of as economic resources, but like design work is clearly an economic resource. Mm-hmm. You know, the designs are valuable. You know, they're useful. They have value. They add value to the products. You know, the design of a process adds value. You know, so there's a lot of you already have an expanded view of value, you know, so just keep that going. those are all in you know, in the sense of the total accounting of the value relation, you know, the things that we do value, you know, as opposed necessarily always those things that bring in money, you know. So we want to, you know, so I don't mean that the economic relationships have to be as narrowly defined as they are in a capitalist economy. All right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess in the end, we do have the freedom, to evaluate some contributions and put them in there.
Yeah, yeah, and we've already got we already have a bunch of different factors in the value equation, and those can all be expanded. One thing you might want to think about, and this is not particularly on topic, but it has to do with you're thinking of a contract for somebody to join a project. Okay, somebody wants to join the project, you can say, okay, here's the deal. Here's how this works. You're going to have to there's the legality of contracts, but there's also the sort of like the common law, common understanding of when you join into a contract, it is a mutual agreement, and you can't change that. You can't change the terms of that. You can't change the value equation without getting agreement from all the parties to that value equation.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
So you will not be as free to change the value equation as you might want to be.
Yeah.
You're going to have to say, okay, we want to change the value equation. We need to get buy-in, and sometimes that's going to constrain you.
Yeah, well, you need a decision-making process, which is also part of the contract. In case we figure out that we need to increase the incentives for a particular role, for example. Okay, we need an engineer, mechanical engineer, to do some design, and that resource is scarce. Then therefore we need to increase the weight of that role, and so I'm describing a possibility here, and then the group might use a certain decision-making process which is already prescribed, okay, in order to decide how to set up this parameter, okay, to attract this resource.
I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work, but all I'm trying to say is that there's going to be an expectation for somebody coming in and say, okay, this is a contract, or even if you don't call it a contract, it is one. It's like we have this mutual agreement that this is how it's going to work. And so at that point, like if I come in and I say, okay, you can say I think that I don't think changing the rates necessarily changes the contract for people that were not counting on that rate in the first place. Let's say if you have an engineering rate and I come in and I'm an engineer and I'm looking at that engineering rate and I say, okay, that seems pretty fair to me, and then you come through and you raise that rate, so it's not going to hurt my feelings, and if I wasn't an engineer in the first place, then that's probably not, let's say I'm a designer. Okay, so you change the engineering rate. Yeah, to some extent, that's gonna if you raise the engineering rate in comparison to the design rate, then that's gonna affect future distributions, to some extent. But it's not quite so much my business, because I was just counting on the relationship for designers, so there's a whole lot of ifs in here, and I don't know how you're going to work those out. But basically, it's if you remain transparent and democratic about this stuff, then it's basically don't go changing this stuff all by yourself. you know,
yeah, exactly.
understand that it's a mutually agreement process, and I know you will do that. You know, I'm not concerned about that. So,
yeah, from a technical perspective, I think we need to have that into the system, because what we want to allow is to have people that have a vision and set in place the games of the rule, but then also have the possibility to change the course as the project develops and reality kicks in, because sometimes the plan doesn't match the
you will have to change stuff. You know, I guess the other aspect is, are those changes retroactive, or are those changes take place for future distributions? You know, so there's a bunch of things there that come in. You know, let's say, okay, we did this distribution, we evaluated all of these contributions as of November 1st, okay? So now we're going to change the rules for December, and are we going to go back and revalue the contributions from pre-November, you know? And I don't know, you know, some of that stuff is you're going to have to work out how you want that stuff to happen, and then
okay.
the system is either going to have to allow that revaluation or not.
Yeah, this is interesting. Yeah.
I guess the other thing is, and we've talked about this before, is it is technically possible to have a different value equation for each project.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so you say, okay, this value, this project, you know, so it depends on like how independent are the projects. You know, is somebody buying into the Sensorica value network, or are they buying into the transducer project? You know, and are the rules different? And I don't know. You know, I don't know how that's. This is part of what's interesting about this to me, is like there's all these different people that are working on aspects, you know, ideas for what is the next economic system. You know, how do we organize ourselves in a more human way?
Yeah.
You know, so you guys are part of that, and you're going to be working through, in the reality of this stuff. You know, this is really fascinating, but it's also, I don't have all the answers, and you don't have all the answers. So you know, it's gonna be fun.
I do think, Bob, that projects need to have their own sort of value equation, and need to be seen as nodes, because because otherwise, you see, what I noticed from my experience is that people who are alike and share a certain understanding, they can come faster to a conclusion than if you mix people with totally different views. And what happens is, when you put people that work on the business side of things, developing their networks, doing some marketing and so on, and you mix them with people that work on the technical stuff, these are two different worlds, and these people don't necessarily understand how the other people prioritize what's important for them and why that thing is important for the whole network. I mean, I live this every day, when sometimes I work on the infrastructure, I work on the website, or I work on, you know, the network. And some of these guys that are doing very technical work, you know, they don't necessarily value my work that day, because I didn't produce anything tangible.
Yep.
I didn't advance the project towards, you know, getting some revenue in the end.
Yep.
Although what I'm doing is probably very important, because, you know, we're not just building products, we're also building an organization.
Yeah.
And without an organization, you can't move products, right? But that thing is going to be, you know, seen later on. So, you know, if you put people very different together to decide, you polarize the discussion, and then you might end up in a stalemate, you know.
Yep.
So you can't move, and the decision making becomes paralyzed. The organization can't, it's not flexible anymore. Can adapt to new situations. So that's why I think that projects should be treated in a different, separately, so that people run them, and whatever problems they have. Let's say they have a problem and they reach a stalemate and they can't do anything. Well, the whole network is not paralyzed. You just have that particular project that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yep.
it's a structure. You create a structure that is much more resilient. Okay.
Yep.
Because you isolate problems in different corners. Now, yes, it adds complexity, okay, to the infrastructure, in the sense that now every project is an independent node, and you have to match inputs and outputs of these projects. Okay, I thought
have to do that anyway. It's not a big. It is not a technical problem to have different value equations per project. It's not at all a technical problem.
Yeah. I think that's the goal.
I haven't done that work yet, but I will make it so. So each project can have its own value equation.
Yeah. So, okay. So if I see here, I like the way you define. I remember we had an email exchange here, and you defined projects as contexts for processes, and I think you even wrote something about it in the dictionary, right?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I remember that. So, okay.
Dictionary?
Yes.
Okay.
You mentioned a dictionary. Sorry.
Yes. So if you go on Digo and type dictionary, there is a value network dictionary where you have all these
definitions.
terms. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you see project, you see. So, to tell the truth, Bob, I don't have a very clear idea about how processes and projects articulate. Just this general thing that that you said before, and I think it makes sense to me that projects give the context for processes, and processes are more general in the sense that you can do purchasing in different contexts. Okay.
Well, a process is going to happen in one context, and each process is related to one and only one project. Yeah. So but processes will have relationships across projects, so that you will have so we'll have the transducers, and they have a relationship with the Mosquito Scientific Instrument project, because they're going to go out as components in instrument systems. And then the infrastructure projects are going to have relationships with everybody else, and those are those things we've had some discussions about, but it's not completely clear how that's going to get worked out yet. Yeah. Now, I mean, I think we have to understand that we're in the process of evolving a system. So what I think is going to work best right now, and I've been thinking about this quite a lot, is like if I work through the next stages of what we've been talking about for project management, which is really process management and resource management, in terms of like you think about it as the management of materials and equipment that you need, and people's time and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I think then the whole idea of working in a network will start making more sense to people, because you're going to see it in front of you, and you're going to see how different it is to, let's say, log your time in the context of a process schedule versus logging your time by, you just decided today you were going to log some time and you're going to make up all the details from scratch, because those things were still going to happen, but it's going to be different when you're working in the context of this process, and this process knows what you were supposed to do, and what you were supposed to use, and what the output was supposed to be, and so on. So I think if I start getting more of those things in place, that then a whole lot of these other things are going to become more clear.
Okay.
And then you say, okay, this is actually a network. It's not just we're calling it a network. This is really a network. That these things are related to one another in these concrete ways. And then also we get to the next thing that Tibi was giving some feedback about. He's asking, how do you purchase something? I need to purchase something, for this process, and so how do you do that? Well, and what I explained to him is that purchasing is what we have right now for process types is we have making stuff, manufacturing processes, and so there are also exchanges, and exchanges are different from manufacturing processes. They're related, but they don't work the same. And so exchanges are buying and selling stuff, and you can have exchanges with external agents, where you're exchanging with something in the market economy. You can also have internal exchanges, and both of those are going to work somewhat differently. So exchanges, I have not put any exchanges into the system yet. So Tibi's looking for how to purchase stuff. It's not in there yet.
Okay.
And it will make more sense if I do this whole process management stuff first. And so then we say, okay, now here's an example of, I have this process, I need these materials, so now I got to go purchase them. And so at that point, now we need the system has evolved to the standpoint where we actually do need to be able to purchase something. So I will put that into the system at that point, and then it will make sense in context. Okay.
Okay.
There's a bunch of questions about how you purchase stuff,
yes,
and how you exchange. I gave you this. I wrote the story about what happened in the 1990s in manufacturing, with companies like Saturn, and Auto, where they just and also the gang in Malaysia that I was working with, and they would come and complain at me. This system requires unnecessary transactions. All those transactions are waste. We don't want to do those transactions. And so I would have the system automatically generate the transactions for them, so that it wouldn't bother them. They say it's waste anyway, and they would complain at me again, and it was great. I had a good time with those guys. Actually, I'm making it sound like it was a pain. It wasn't. It was like these people thinking deeply about all this stuff, and looking at all this stuff, that doesn't add value, that doesn't add value, that doesn't add value, that's just waste. Let's not do that. We don't want to do that. So they eliminated a whole lot of things on the basis of trusted relationships. So in the network, you will have trusted relationships. You can operate much more informally. You do not need, like a purchase order. A purchase order is a contract. It's an offer to buy, and when they come back and they say, whatever response they give you that they will accept that purchase order, then they are agreeing to sell that to you for those terms in that purchase order, and that is a legal contract that will be enforceable in a court of law. And so there's a whole lot of formalities around that, and so when you're these are those are also transaction costs, and so one of the aspect, there's an economist once that wrote a really influential book about why do companies exist. It's like the theory of the firm, and companies exist to minimize transaction costs. In other words, within a company, you don't need all of those transactions because they all cost. externally, so they try to incorporate all this stuff because it's cheaper to do business internally than it is to do business externally. And so what we will find out is like the internal, when we're dealing with somebody that's in the network where you have those trusted relationships, you can just they can look at the schedule and they say, oh, they need this stuff that we do. Great, we will commit to do that. You don't need any orders. You don't need, it's just all part of the network. It's just a flow. Whereas if you're going to buy something from FIS, or from China or whatever, you need a purchase order, you need receipts, and you need invoices, and you need all this kind of stuff, that goes back and forth, and eventually you pay them and whatever, So there are going to be these internal and external exchanges, and the external exchanges also, like when you're going to go buy something from China, you might want to look and see, okay, how much of this do I want to buy? I need a very small amount for this process that's happening next week, but I know that the week after that I'm going to want some more of that, and so it gets down to transaction costs, delivery costs, all that kind of stuff. Maybe I want to buy some minimum order quantity, or maybe because it's all going to come on the same delivery, maybe want to buy some other stuff at the same time. So there's all kinds of things that go into purchasing from an external agent. And so we'll have to put all those things into the system one way or another.
Bob, what's the name of the guy that wrote this book? Because I think this is very, very interesting for me.
Beg pardon?
What's the name of the guy that wrote that book? Companies minimize transaction costs?
Yeah. I don't know how he knows pronounce his name, but his name is I would pronounce it as Coase. It's Coase. You can look for it. It's a very famous book, and it's probably out on the web someplace. Let me see.
What's the name of the book?
I'm gonna find it for you. Hang on.
Okay. Because you see, one of the arguments for the value network structure to exist or not to exist, it's actually that. Why would a value network be economically viable? Why would companies which are boxes with shells maintaining people inside within a unit of trust, whatever, why would they disintegrate? And the idea is because we do have systems in place now that can function in a decentralized and more diffuse way and still reduce transaction costs. So you have mechanisms like reputation, formal reputation that replaces the internal culture and sense of belonging within the corporation and the rules that people try to obey to. And so that's the regulatory mechanism that allows trust-based transactions outside of the company, and then you have all these tools that automate logistics and make coordination possible. So basically what you see is that the internet and all the applications we build on top of it makes possible the reduction of transaction costs outside of classical institutions with hard boundaries. You know what I'm saying? That's a pretty good argument to say that value networks are actually viable.
Okay, I sent you a link, and I'm going to send you another one that's better. Okay, the second link in the chat here is the better one. That's about the nature of the firm, is what he said.
Okay. Oh, pause. Okay. Got it. So this is the first one. Yeah, this is really interesting stuff.
The first one is really abstruse and it abstracts it too much. The second one is more to the point. That's the second one is the one that the first one is what he got the Nobel Prize for, which is a bunch of crap. The second one is the one that was really influential, that that people cite all the time. This essay about the nature of the firm.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we are an hour into it now. I don't know.
Yeah.
For me, what I take.
Okay. Is that clear enough for now on exchanges?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, Francois.
Yeah, I have a series of small questions about the recipes. I didn't take time to play with it too much, so I don't have a lot of questions, but I just want you, Bob, to rephrase the goals of the recipes, because I found 4 goals, and please correct me if I don't define it well. So I use recipes to map the components, the stocks we have in Sensorica. Is it correct?
I'm not. I'm missing something. Is this something that Tibi is showing something on his screen right now? Is that what we're talking about?
No, Bob. I'm just trying to document. I mean, I'm just trying to resurface work that we did before. I did this in 2011 about transaction between Sensorica active members and transaction between Sensorica.
Okay, but Francois, you're saying something, and I did not catch the word. Put it in the chat.
Okay,
just my hearing.
Okay, but I just want to know what are the goals of the recipe. But I can send you. Yeah, I can send you the questions.
Okay. The goals of the recipe is the it depends on what level you're looking about. The recipe in the software is the structure on which I hang all of the process management, the resource management. That this is so. If you have a command for a mosquito sensor, then it will the software will look at that recipe and say, okay, now I need to have to schedule this type of a process. I need to schedule these input resources, and if they have lead times, the process itself will have an estimated time that it will duration that it will take to happen. So I need to back schedule that from the time that I need the sensor. I need to back schedule the process, and then for the component, for the inputs of that, I need to look at the lead times for those, if those are external inputs, or if there's a subsequent process that needs to go in. We need components that we're going to manufacture, then I have to schedule the processes to make those components, and then schedule the need for the inputs of materials and time. And if I may want to look. The software will look to see. Okay, do I have any of those already on hand in inventory, or do I need to get some? If I need to purchase some, then there's a lead time involved, so I need to back schedule that. And so all these things will start fit on the timeline, and also in Gantt charts and things like that. And it may also tell me that if I want this sensor by next week, and all the lead times add up to 2 weeks, I can't get it next week.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So say, okay, you need to push that back. So the recipe is what tells the system how to schedule all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So it integrates components, we said inventory, but also coordinate people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And is there a place where we can see the inventory?
Not yet.
Okay.
But there will be.
Okay. So I don't have a lot of questions. I need to play with the system before.
Yeah, I'm aware that you're operating in this. This is what was happening with Tibi last week, is that he's looking at this and he's seeing that he needs to do things that are not there in the system yet. And you will encounter this too. You'll say, okay, well, maybe there's something in inventory. Well, inventory is not there yet, so you're going to be feeling around in places where it's just not there yet. So yell at me if you get into those things. If you have a question, if this is something that you should add to the recipe, or if it's something else that will exist. Or anything that these will help you understand. It will also help me understand how you're thinking about it, and how I'm communicating and how the system is communicating. And all of those questions will help frame the whole process of developing the software. Okay.
Okay. And
okay, anything else? Oops.
Anything
else at this moment?
Not for me, Tibi.
I just want to say that value exchange is very important, and we need to. Bob, can we arrange a meeting with this guy Eric? That we had a few exchanges with Eric, Michel Bowens.
Yeah, he never came back after the last email, or I never saw anything anyway.
Yeah.
I was sort of imagining how that all might fit in, and I don't know what he made of that. If he, because basically what I was saying at that point is that it looks to me like he's a lot more in the area of where you want to go with the extended aspects of value. All of the extended dimensions of value, and that right now I'm very focused on getting the simple material stuff up and running, and not so focused on the extended meanings of value. And it's not like I don't think those are unimportant. It's just
it's a timing issue.
I can only do so much.
No, okay.
Okay, and the material aspects I think I understand well.
Okay.
And the other stuff I don't understand so well. So I'm gonna be I would be like a lurker. I would be a listener on those conversations. I'm interested in them, but I don't have that much to contribute. Now Eric has thought about that stuff a lot.
Yeah.
That's his ballpark. And that's an area that you have thought about a lot. And so it seemed to me like you and he could have an interesting and useful conversation about that, and I could listen in, So that's sort of like where I'm at now. I don't know if he took that to being dismissing, what he was bringing to the table. I don't mean it that way, although sometimes I don't, it's an email, sometimes the tone does not come through properly.
Yeah, no, I think it's okay.
Yeah. So maybe why don't you ping him and see, in that same thread and indicate that you do want to continue the conversation, because I sort of left it up to to you guys to figure out what to do next, and
Okay.
I'll just hang on.
Okay. Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
So what I get from this, it's more alignment on understanding about processes and projects, and I think we're gonna take a few days to think more about projects and processes, and maybe we're gonna come up with some.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have these couple of things I have to do yet before I start working on the project management, you know, the laying out of the schedules and that kind of stuff. But that
Okay.
then once I get through these couple of other things, then I will get on to that,
Mhm.
and then we'll start seeing some of that stuff. That'll, you know, I'll be back home, and
Okay.
we'll start seeing. I think you start seeing how that stuff shapes up in some more thing. You know, I think it'll become more clear. Although maybe maybe it's starting to become clearer in your mind already. I don't know. We'll see.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. I
Okay.
will play with the system.
Okay. Thank you all.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.